r/EntitledParents, Dad insisted on dropping candy from a plane to celebrate his daughter's birthday. Story 1. I used to work at an outdoor education program that involved middle schools bringing their students to stay overnight for 3 to 5 days. One week, we had a slightly more affluent group, and one of the girls was having a birthday during the week. This happens all the time, so we'll usually sing for the kid and the parents can pack a card and treat for them. This girl's dad did not find this celebratory enough because he asked the school to ask my boss if he could fly his plane over the field and drop bags of candy for the kids. The camp owner obviously said no because this was a huge safety issue and he didn't want to get sued. The teachers told us that it would not happen. Then, during the week, we started to hear murmurs from the teachers that maybe the dad was planning to do it anyway. My boss confronted them and they assured her that it definitely wasn't going to happen and that they were just talking about how they would have done it if they could have. My boss was very suspicious, so on the day of the girl's birthday, she warned us to drop off our kids with the teachers for our break and go straight back to our cabin so we wouldn't be around and liable just in case. Sure enough, a few minutes later, the dad flies by and starts dropping trash bags full of candy out of his plane. He clearly was not well practiced in this because the majority of the bags ended up landing in trees and getting caught there. My boss was furious and the school was banned from ever returning. I think the camp director also tried to get the dad fined for littering because of all the trash bags in the trees, but I'm not sure if that ever went anywhere. Luckily, no kids were hurt. Parents often go to great lengths to make their child's birthday memorable, but the father in this story took it to the extreme. He went against the explicit orders of a school and a camp owner to drop candy from a plane to celebrate his daughter's birthday. Even though he may have wanted to have a memorable birthday experience, his actions showed a dangerous disregard for the rules and the potential risks involved. Not cool, Dad. And honestly, it is quite irritating when there are those who believe they are exempt from rules and regulations. Karen. Imagine a camp for middle school students, an outdoor education program, and one lucky kid whose birthday takes place there. In the past, a cake and a birthday song would be enough, right? But Daddy-O had other ideas. Why not step it up another notch? So he reasoned and requested permission to fly his plane over the grounds and drop candy bags on the children below. He probably thought how awesome it'll have sweets rain down from a plane. The camp's owner, though, didn't think so, which is understandable given that, well, let's face it, candy-filled rockets falling from the sky may be disastrous. It kind of makes you wonder whether the dad was merely trying to show off or genuinely believed that the rules did not apply to him. The dangers posed by his actions were evident because without adequate planning and experience, dropping candy from a plane is a formula for disaster. And despite putting her foot down on the matter, the camp owner heard rumors from the teachers that the father would still give his plan the green light. It was a pretty stubborn and stupid move if you ask me. Given the rumors floating around, the camp owner became suspicious on the big day and wasn't going to take any chances, so she warned everyone to maintain a safe distance in case something went wrong. And she was right. The dad's determination turned candy bags into tree ornaments, unintentionally starting a candy-filled winter wonderland and highlighting the surprising perils of his stupid antics. This story is a flashy reminder that rules and safety guidelines aren't just party poopers, but the bouncers of the celebration of life. Sure, Dad aimed for an epic bash, but it turned into a wild ride with candy missiles and litter bugs. Everyone's got to play by the rules, even if it means swapping your candy cannon for a piñata and finding safer ways to make unforgettable memories.
Hey, by the way, this video is sponsored by me and my friends at Rufus Rugs. We create custom, hand-tufted rugs that perfectly reflect your style. So whether you want to get one of our thumbnails as a rug for, research purposes, or maybe you just want to get some cool anime-style rugs for your room, check out Rufus Rugs by clicking the first link in the description.
Story 2. I'm a 34-year-old male and my husband is 24. We do our best not to spend an abundance of time with my father-in-law. He's a cowardly narcissist who says, hot dog, unironically. Ever since I came into the picture almost 7 years ago, we have simply not meshed. A great deal of that is due to the fact that I've spent those years instilling confidence and boundary setting in my husband. My father-in-law does not like being told no. We literally got kicked out of a restaurant one time because he couldn't accept that they wouldn't give him a discount. So, needless to say, our interactions are nothing more than the exchanging of fake pleasantries. So last week, we're over there for our quarterly visit. And the way these evenings typically go is that my husband occupies my father-in-law's attention while my mother-in-law tests out her new English vocabulary on me. This time, my husband is doing the bulk of the talking to both of them because he's excited about the new organization he's working with. My father-in-law kept trying to change the subject because it's been 2 seconds since the subject of the conversation was about him. My husband and my mother-in-law both snapped. I'm not entirely sure what they said as my Spanish is still terrible, but it amounted to them telling my father-in-law to shut up and listen. My father-in-law got obstinate and essentially told my husband that no matter what the organization is, it'll never compare to the work he did in his youth. My husband understandably storms out with my mother-in-law hot on his tail. Awkwardness ensues because I'm chuckling at my father-in-law. Phil, he never spoke to me like that until you came along. Me, I know, I'm so proud. Phil, you've changed him. Me, no, this is who he's always been. You just never noticed it before. Phil, I know my son. Me, what's his favorite color? Phil, what? Me, what's his favorite color? It's the same one he has had as a kid. Phil, silence. Me, name 2 of his interests. Phil, they don't make any sense. Me, name them. Phil, silence again. Me, here's an easy one. What's the name of the organization he's working with? Phil, silence. This wannabe Bob Ross granola-eating mofo couldn't even answer. My husband said the name of the organization like 5 times that night. Me, you want to know the sad part? My parents can answer each and every one of those questions, and they've known your son for a fraction of the time you have. Cue the screeching in Spanish. Being yelled at in a foreign language by a non-native speaker is a surreal experience. Obviously, my husband came in and yelled back, and it blew up even more. But the part that stands out is the fact that my father-in-law still refused to admit that he just hadn't taken a genuine interest in my husband in years. Like, bro, you don't even know your kid's favorite color. Hello? And now my husband is contemplating going without contact, and I can't blame him. Family dynamics are no walk in the park, especially when personalities clash and emotions simmer beneath the surface. This 34-year-old dude and his husband have a complicated relationship with the father. Not only are they having a difficult time bridging the generational gap, but the father-in-law seems to lack interest in his own son's affairs. The father's personality, described as a quote-unquote cowardly narcissist, spells trouble for the couple. Add to that mix is the dude's role in teaching his husband about setting boundaries. So when the couple visited the in-laws, the father-in-law's persistent craving for the spotlight spoiled the evening. You'd think that when he was confronted by his wife and son, he'd have a mind to behave, but nope, that didn't happen. He didn't care about the son's accomplishments and just wanted to talk about his own achievements in the past. Okay, so let's stop right here. While it's great for the children to hear all about the cool stuff parents did, it won't hurt to take an interest in the children's achievements as well. You could say that it's a testament to how awesome of a parent you have been to raise such a great kid. Parents have already led by example. Now let the children shine. But with this father being so obstinate, I'm not surprised that his son just up and left. The dude and his father-in-law's conversation about the son's interests and hobbies and the father's lack of interest just proved his narcissistic personality, which affects relationships with the family. Bridging generational gap shouldn't be difficult if all parties involved are willing to put in the effort. And if not, as is the case with this father, the husband's decisions to cut communication might just help ease all the tension anyway. After all, didn't they say that time heals all wounds? And perhaps with the silent treatment from his son, the father might finally realize just how selfish he's been all along. Story 3. We were at the dreaded big box store picking up potting soil because we were going to DIY ourselves through the isolation. Things aren't crazy here yet, but there is a 2 per customer limit on a majority of items. My husband is loading the last of 8 bags on our cart when I hear her. I know it's a Karen just by the level of unnecessary outrage in her voice. Karen, are you kidding me? There are not a lot of people out here in the garden center, but we all look up to her. I was almost disappointed to see that she didn't come with the requisite haircut. She actually looked a little like a frazzled mom, her kid tugging on her hand in an overall hand basket of groceries. And I had a moment of, girl, I feel ya, but dang, she was pointing at us. Karen, you can't buy that many. You are hoarding. My husband, yeah, we can. We're getting 2 each. Karen, Oh, you don't fool me. I know what you're doing. My husband. So do I. And I'm just sitting there imagining all the ways I'm going to rock his world tonight. Well, Karen huffed at that, spun around, and yanked her kid back inside to go complain to the employee working the register nearby. Now, we have already paid for our items. The employee had come out and scanned the bags earlier, and he could easily see our cart from inside. So, being finished, we pushed the cart out of the garden center into the parking lot. And then the automatic doors open up behind us, and I hear, "Now they're stealing." We load the soil in the car and turn around to bring the cart back and look at plants. By the time we get back, Karen has given up on trying to convince the employee we're the Bonnie and Clyde of dirt, and is now trying to negotiate skipping somebody in line. She has a child, you see, and her handbasket, well, is just so full and heavy. Could she please just scoot right in on here real quick and it'll just be an extra second? She swears. The woman Karen is trying to skip is young, maybe college age, and wearing a face mask. Not a medical mask, but the stretchy kind you'd wear while riding a motorcycle or when you're skiing. The mask is black and has like scary wolf teeth on it that honestly made the girl look like somebody you should not mess with, even though she was wearing a Gap t-shirt and flip-flops. Mask girl is just shaking her head no, and that's all I got as we dropped off the cart. I browse, pick up a couple of plants, and we head inside to wait in line. Now it's showtime. Karen and Mask Girl are near the register, facing off, no pun intended. From the look of things, Mask Girl finished her purchase and Karen stopped her before she could leave. I don't know if she grabbed her or anything, but Karen was still holding her full hand basket, so she hadn't checked out yet. Well, she hadn't paid for her groceries yet because clearly this woman had checked out. Karen, but you don't even need it now. You're leaving. My son could get sick because you won't give it to him and he needs it. Mask Girl, no, you can't have it. Back off, lady. Karen, but my son really likes it and it's obviously made for boys anyway. Why would you even want to wear something so scary? Mask Girl, because I like it and it has my germs on it. Why would you put a stranger's mask on your kid? Karen, ugh, why are you being so rude? You wouldn't let us go through the checkout first and now you're making my son very upset. Mask Girl, your problem, not mine. And then Mask Girl turns to leave while Karen manifests the biggest guts ever and grabs Mask Girl by the back of her mask. Now, let me make a side note here. When all of this is going down, we're all just standing in line and watching. The register is still going boop, boop, boop as the employee scans items, but otherwise, we're all just inside this hypnotic bubble. But when Karen reached out towards Mask Girl, it was like the bubble popped and made everything crystal clear. Not slow-mo or anything, but I absolutely felt hyper-aware, like Spider-Man. So Karen reaches out, people on both sides of me inhale loudly. Karen grabs the mask and yanks, a lady on my right yells, and my husband steps forward. Mask Girl tucks her head down and she turns to Karen like an angry bull with a bright and shiny new target. I think Karen was going to say something like, "Don't walk away from me," or something, but all she got out was, "Don't crack." I looked around because the noise was so loud that I figured the roof was about to cave in, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw Karen spasm and drop to the floor, writhing. Little Miss Mask Girl had a taser. I don't know when she pulled it out, this tiny little flashlight-looking thing, but she laid Karen out with it, and not one of us moved for what I felt like forever, like we were frozen. And then it was bedlam. Security guard shows up, more employees show up, Mask Girl is chilling like she's been through this before and knows what comes next. The kid is screaming that the wolf girl killed his mom even though she's groaning and sobbing on the floor and clearly not dead, but maybe wishing she was. The people that had been in line with us were all talking at once, trying to tell the security guard what happened. We hung around just witnessing the insanity for maybe 2 minutes, before Karen started choking out demands for an ambulance, the police, a lawyer, the mayor, restitution, and reparations. My husband made eye contact with an employee and got a thumbs up when he put the plants on a shelf and pointed towards the door. We got out of there. We drove home in silence until my husband parked the car in our driveway, and then we just burst out laughing. Neither of us have ever seen anything like that before. We live in a small beach town and the people are super laid back and mellow. Karen was anything but, and I hope to never see her again. A classic Karen collides with a daring young woman in this crazy encounter that triggers an unusual confrontation. The incident made me wonder about entitlement and how one should address these unjust behaviors. Because the truth is, entitlement is a puzzling trait. Just like with the Karen in this story, some people actually believe that they are superior to others and insist on having their way. You know, the age-old adage, my way or the highway? Yeah, that. Karen first accuses the couple of hoarding. I don't know, maybe her brain wasn't on full capacity that day that she didn't understand what maximum of 2 per item meant. Maybe she thought it was a maximum of 2 items? But then again, the basket carried by her child had an assortment of items that was definitely more than 2. Strike one for Karen. Then she went on to torment someone else, Mask Girl, and tried to cut in line with some flimsy excuse. Good thing Mask Girl saw through Karen's ridiculous request and rejected her. In cases like these, the typical Karen would have insisted that she gets her way, but this one begrudgingly agreed, only to surprise us with the next stunt she pulled, grabbing the mask of the girl. Sometimes I wonder about the behavior of Karens. Why are they intentionally pushing people's limits? Do they have a screwed up understanding of what is right and wrong? Or do they think they're superior than others and therefore should always be able to get their way? Also, in this story, the Karen was with her child. What kind of example is she setting for her child? Was she intentionally teaching her kid to be like herself? It kind of makes you wonder how deep their sense of entitlement is. So the question is, if you're on the receiving end of a Karen's unreasonable demands, what would you do? Would you whip out a taser just like Mask Girl did and teach the Karen a lesson? Okay, so maybe a taser would be a little bit too much, but any sort of action to fend off a Karen's advances would do. While some people may argue that it is best to leave the authorities to handle situations like this, we have to remember that we have a right to defend our personal spaces and what is essentially right. Story 4. This incident happened about 8 years ago. It was my sister's birthday and a lot of my family members from my dad's side were invited. My dad's sister, who will be called M henceforth, and her daughter EC henceforth, were visiting us after many years because they moved to California. So M wanted her daughter to be the center of attention since the moment they came in. EC was about 7 years old and everyone was quite taken with her because she spoke with an adorable accent. When it was time to cut the cake, M wanted EC to cut it even though it was my sister's birthday. The reason being, she's a kid. She deserves to cut the cake. She is the youngest of them all. My sister, S, is way too old to be cutting cakes anyway. It was my sister's 11th birthday. M's request was declined by my mom, which made M quite angry. When dinner was served, M was very hungry and sat down to eat. As soon as she started, EC started crying and demanding to be fed. M expected my mom to stop eating and feed her kid, so my mother agreed. The worst part was when my sister was unwrapping her gifts. My sister loves Barbies, so she received a doll and a doll house from my mom and dad, and I gave her a bunch of homemade chocolate that I made myself. M, what does S need chocolates for? Come on, give them to EC, you're way too old for them. S gave EC some of them, which EC proceeded to start eating right then and there. S went on to unwrap other presents and was made to share a bunch of other stuff like sparkle pens, a set of crayons, etc. with EC. EC, after some time, started wailing that she wanted more chocolate. M was literally shouting, "Why have you not given her the chocolates? Didn't I ask you to? Why are you being so mean? She's your cousin. She deserves them." S was almost in tears and gave her 3 more. Now only 5 chocolates remain, of which she gave 1 to each of us, Mom, Dad, M, and me. I saved mine to give it to her later. M noticed it and asked me to give it to EC since I was obviously not going to eat it. I didn't. When S started to unwrap the dollhouse and the Barbie, M actually pounced on the doll and started pulling it away from S. Now S starts to cry, which made M angry, and she screamed at S to shut up and stop being so mean and stingy. EC was from the US and did not have any Indian toys, and she needed the doll. My father flat out refused, which resulted in more screaming and crying. Then she left in a huff and kicked at the dollhouse, denting it. My sister was very sad, and it is needless to say that her birthday was ruined, but that wasn't the end. About an hour or so later, M was back, kicking and screaming at our door, saying we had poisoned her kid and that she would be suing us. EC's stomach was aching, but instead of calling a doctor, she drove her to our house. We seated them and called the doctor, during which M was screaming about how we were jealous of her and would suffer terrible fates. The doctor said the pain was because of overeating. I guess she shouldn't have had 6 of those chocolates. M then proceeded to blame me and my sister for everything, saying how both of us were spoiled and mean kids. Now let's rewind to a family birthday party about 8 years ago. Everything seemed set for a fun celebration until a certain aunt and her daughter entered the scene, fresh from their move to California. But this isn't your typical birthday bash because the entitled aunt had one mission: to ensure that her daughter took center stage throughout the event. She wanted her daughter to be the star of the show from the time they arrived. The standard, my child deserves all of the attention scenario. I guess this story is just another example of entitlement gone wild within a family setting. The aunt's antics were out of this world, from demanding that her daughter cut the cake to having fits about exchanging gifts. She persisted in putting her child's demands ahead of the actual birthday girl, which of course confused everyone. The chocolate showdown was possibly the most memorable moment. S's sister made the correct decision by refusing to comply with the aunt's request that she hand over her chocolates to the daughter. Even at family reunions, it's important to set and maintain personal boundaries. Accepting inappropriate requests merely fosters entitlement and establishes a precedent for future behavior. The chocolates were a gift from the sister to S, the birthday girl. It was S's choice of how to distribute them, and she elected to keep some for herself while distributing a limited amount to others. This decision showed self-respect and the importance of not allowing others to trespass on one's boundaries, particularly when it comes to personal belongings. But what can one do when confronted with such entitlement? A difficult scenario. While it may be tempting to step in, it is frequently best to let the immediate family members manage things. And in this situation, S's mother did exactly that by declining the aunt's requests. The entitled aunt's actions, motivated by a sense of superiority stemming from her relocation from India to the United States, was also unfounded, and it demonstrates that the sense of entitlement by some stems from perceived superiority due to one's circumstances. I guess this story shows the terrible damage that entitlement can cause, turning a day of joy into one of confusion and sadness. Instead of entitlement and drama, family gatherings should be about love, respect, fun, and shared happiness. So if you enjoyed these stories, you won't want to miss Entitled Parents Give Their Son's Birthday to His Spoiled Little Sister, Rufus Stories. Story 2 is cringeworthy. Also, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button to our channel to stay in the loop about our upcoming videos. I'll see you there, and thanks for watching.